I guess we will just take questions, and if someone comes in later, then we'll let her talk. Okay, so folks, do you have questions? Yes.
Same question to both candidates. What's your position on public education? I left it broad like this, so if you can answer it in your own way.
I'm happy to go first on that one. Public education, I think, absolutely needs help from the federal government in terms of resources primarily. What we don't need specifically from the federal government is more red tape, more strings attached, and more mandates for testing and standards that our local school teachers and local administrators and local parents have not had any input into.
And I agree. I will tell you this. From my military background, I look at a lot of issues from a national security point of view. And I know that if we don't fix our educational system, it becomes a problem because other countries are going to be outperforming us. And the kids in Ruskin, the kids in Riverview and Lakeland, they don't just have to compete against kids in Ruskin, Riverview, and Lakeland. They got to compete with kids in China, India, and some of these other developing nations. My main thing is I've always said, and I love Ted Kennedy, but no child left behind has to get left behind. We can't have unfunded mandates from the federal government. So that's one of the first things I would fix.
What are your feelings about correction? That is, the closing of prisons, the crowding conditions in prisons now, and the correctional workers having gone for several years without raises.
Yes, sir. I will tell you that I support Jim Webb, Senator Jim Webb of Virginia, and his top-to-bottom review of our correctional and our sentencing guidelines. I think we have too many nonviolent offenders in prison. I think we have too many disparities as far as drug sentencing laws. And I think that when we have certainly African-American children that are more likely to end up in the criminal justice system than they are in a college or a school of higher learning, that we've got a serious problem in our country.
I wasn't here. Was that question for both of us?
Yes.
Okay. There's not a lot that I can add to that, except to say that, like many things, I think that our state and local government, the way our structure is currently set up, and rightly so, has a lot more impact on the day-to-day existence of our prisoners, as well as kind of the administration of our prison system here in Florida and local jail system. And I don't see where the federal government can necessarily improve on that. I'm not suggesting there's not room for improvement. I'm saying I don't think bringing in another level of bureaucracy or engaging the federal government will necessarily improve the situation. If improvements need to be made, there's probably plenty of opportunity through county government and the state government.
Yes, go ahead.
What is, you said we're expressing position?
I am, thank you, I'm supervisor of elections of Polk County, Florida. I was first elected to that post in 2000 and have been re-elected subsequently.
As far as education?
I thought you said position.
No, I said as far as education, whatever somebody brought up. I've been here 10 years. I come from the state of New York. You'll never get it.
I'm not understanding.
I'm sorry.
We'll never,
State of Florida.
we'll never be as good as New York.
Yeah, we're way, we've been above. All the northern states are way above you. And for 10 years I've heard this. And I don't want to hear a politician hear the word education. I don't want it in his speech. He doesn't know what he's talking about. And I could confront him face to face.
Don't you love America?
Yeah, but I don't have the opportunity.
I will tell you, I'd be more than willing to give you a good listen afterwards, because I can always get smarter on education.
Yes.
Oh, you mentioned, and I've heard it from the same mantra from both sides of the aisle. We have to bring back jobs by helping small businesses. I spent most of my working life in Silicon Valley and at Gulf Coast in key cities. And those jobs are never coming back. They're gone forever because of technology. And nobody speaks to that. You know, they're talking about helping the small business, but the small business pays minimum wage to the workers they hire. You know, the middle class who were making 50 to 80,000 or whatever, those jobs are gone. And I hear nobody speaking to that. Can you tell me why that's happening?
And our economy is definitely shifting. There's no two ways about it. And it's we know. Look at Detroit. I mean, we're reminded over and over and over again that the face of our jobs are changing on almost a daily basis. And I almost feel like we're going through a big shift right now. And that's some of the things that we're up against on top of many other things with our economy. I think Doug made the point very well when he answered about education. And he talked about the fact that as we move forward, it's no longer, you know, competing against the other people in your high school class for a local job in Ruskin or Riverview or Lakeland. We're in a different economy. It's a bigger one. Its jobs will be different. I do see that. As far as local businesses, small businesses paying minimum wage, you're right, some small businesses do pay minimum wage. You know what else? Some giant businesses pay minimum wage. Some giant businesses, and you have right here in this portion of Hillsborough County, don't pay health insurance, and we could go on and on. So it is true, some small businesses don't pay well, some large businesses don't pay well. We have I don't remember the number, but it's an amazing number of people on the federal government payroll that are below the poverty level. So I just wanted for a moment to defend small business and say they're not the only ones that have jobs that might not be able to.
And I would just add, because you mentioned Silicon Valley, you know, when you say small business, people think of the mom and pop grocery store and things like that. I work for a small business in Nate Alpha. They have $27 million worth of contracts. So, I mean, this is a very broad category. We have 160 some odd employees. So, you know, it's not mom and pop. One of the things that I think we really need to focus on as we rebuild our infrastructure, as we try to rebuild our economy, is the innovation that we used to have out in Silicon Valley, and using it towards green jobs. There's a fella, I have forgotten his name, but he's invented a thing called the Bloom Box. Have y'all seen this in the news?
Yes. Yeah.
He takes sand, pressurizes it, ends up making these little discs, like the old floppy disk when computers first came out, and you build a stack of these things, and it'll power your whole house. And it's off the grid. So we no longer, you know, that allows the people to live out in rural areas and different things like this. It allows companies to limit their carbon output. And I think it's that kind of innovation when we talk about small businesses.
There's another problem too with education. I taught all the way from kindergarten up through college before I quit the teaching profession to go into industry, because I got tired of the unions controlling it and getting nothing, paid nothing, you know, to teach 40 students, 24 units a week. And then when I was in industry, I was making like six-figure incomes easily. Now the interesting thing is, I worked on Wall Street for 5 years. And with the recent crunch, all those jobs are gone, and we have these educational institutions, whether it's Wharton or University of Chicago or Berkeley or whatever, and they're training people, they're granting degrees and jobs that don't exist anymore. And nobody's tackling that. That's the whole educational system. In other words, we can look at the junior college curriculum. I looked at that because I'm interested in high-tech stuff. And they're teaching computer courses at the local JCs that are outdated. They've been outdated for years. They're Stone Age stuff, and it's still in the curriculum right now. So in other words, we're training people, and there are all these schools, culinary schools and art design and whatever, the vocational schools like DeVry. They're training people for jobs that don't exist either. And no one has talked about that at all. I can see why. I wouldn't either. I wouldn't know what to do. So I'm not saying you need to answer me. I don't think that anybody has the answer to that. So I wish you well, both of you.